Hey Macro Machiners, happy Thanksgiving. So before you eat all that good stuff today, get in a nice good workout. So today is going to be 5 rounds for time. It's going to be called Thanksgiving, surprise, surprise. It's going to be 5 thrusters, 8 handstand push-ups, 20 ab twists, 10 kneeling presses, 15 kettlebell swings, and 20 sit-ups. So you're going to do all that 5 times. And we're going to go through all of those movements and the modifications. Then you can get started, and then you can get started on dinner. Okay, so our first movement is going to be our thruster. So our thruster is going to be a front squat into an overhead press. So the important thing is we want to use our momentum throughout the whole movement. So we're going to use leg drive. We're going to use gravity coming back down into that squat. So take advantage of each movement. It's a separate movement into one. So we want to make sure it flows nice and easy. So if you have a barbell, wonderful. We'll go over that first. So you're going to have to clean the barbell up first unless you have a rack and you're going to start on top of a rack. So the important thing is too, when you get this up onto your shoulders, it is resting on your shoulders. You're not trying to hold it here. That's going to take a lot of energy and effort that you don't need. We want to make sure that we bring our elbows up and out, and we're holding the barbell here. So if you let go of the barbell while it's up here, it should still stay up on those shoulders. So by pulling your elbows up and a little out, you're creating a shelf for it to rest there. So another important part is that front squat. So remember, we want good form. We always want to stay tight in that core. So make sure you're taking that breath and holding it in as you go up and coming back out. Let it go at the top. So we want to be about hip width, maybe slightly wider. Our toes slightly pointed outwards. We always want our knees to go out. Remember, out, not forward, not in. And the reason for this is going to keep our feet nice and flat. We don't want to be rolling up onto those toes, especially when we're in a front squat position with weight, because that's going to even more drag us forward. So we want to make sure we're staying upright. Everything is engaged. We're keeping our chest up, and we're going to come down in that nice squat. Our feet are going to be flat. So keeping our feet flat, again, our knees are going to have to go out. Once you start pointing forward and you start coming forward, you're going to see that I automatically start rocking back and forth. So to avoid that rock and going up on those toes, we want slightly pointed outward with our toes and our knees to come out. That's going to bring us straight up and straight down, which is extremely important for this movement. Once we come up from that squat, we're going to use that leg drive. So really push down into the ground with those feet and really drive up with your legs. And this is going to give the momentum to the barbell to bring it up overhead. So as we're coming up, we're going to lift up with the barbell, come all the way up until our arms are straight above our head. Our arms should be even with our ears. We want our head to come through a little bit at the top. And as we come back down into that squat, we're going to bring the barbell down and we're going to catch it on the way down onto our shoulders, where it is resting until we bring it back up over. So it's going to look something like this. So we're going to be resting it. Again, it's on my shoulders. I am only supporting it with my hands to make sure it's not moving. We're going to come down into that squat and then drive up overhead. Again, my feet are always staying flat on the ground during this whole movement. If you don't have a barbell, if you're not ready to use a barbell, you can use a dumbbell as well. You're going to have to switch sides. So do 5 on each side. So you're going to rest that dumbbell on one shoulder. You're going to come in. You can use this hand for stability. Bring it out, come up overhead, and then, like I said, you're going to have to switch to do 5 on each side. You can also use a band. Step 1 foot, it's going to be 5 on each side. So come down into that front squat, push up overhead. And you can also use a kettlebell too. We will come back. So the next movement is going to be the handstand push-up. We will come back to that. We'll do that last. Next movement is going to be our ab twist. So again, it's important. We want to be in a V position. So we're going to cross those legs, butt on the ground, V position, tap, engaging that core on each side. So now if we want to use a weight, which I suggest if you can, we want to tap, keep the weight close. So you can use a dumbbell, a kettlebell, or a plate to do that. If you find the stability a little bit hard with that, and you want to use the weight, just put one heel on the ground, just one heel only. And that's just going to help you stay stable as you go back and forth. Make sure you're really engaging that core. If you find yourself unstable and not being able to move back and forth with the weight, that means we just have to work a little bit more on that core strength, and that's okay. That will come in time. So you can also use a band as well. You're going to have to do 10 on each side. You're going to sit on the band like so. You're going to grab it with 2 hands, and you're going to pull, really squeezing that core as you're going back and forth, and then just switch sides. So the next movement is going to be our kneeling press. We're going to have one knee down. The other one is going to be about a 90-degree angle. We're going to use a dumbbell for this. So it's going to be, so it's 10 kneeling presses. So it's going to be 5 on each side. So important part is keeping that core engaged as always. You can go ahead and guess that every movement that we use, your core is going to need to be engaged. We want to make sure we're standing, we're tall and straight with our chest and core here. Our back is going to be straight. We're going to rest the dumbbell on one shoulder, and then we're going to push up overhead until we're straight overhead. Our ear and arm should be even. We're going to come back down. And what we really want to do is prevent movement here. We don't want to be going side to side, because once we start going this way, our spine then is twisting into a weird position, which could cause back injury. So we want to make sure we're straight. Use a weight that you can use that's going to take effort, but not too much that you're going to start moving back and forth. It should be a nice, even movement with little back and forth. You're not using momentum. It's strictly your arm movement here. And then like I said, you'll switch arms and legs and go on this side. So another thing we can do is a band. So you're going to step on it with your foot, your kneeling foot, and you're just going to press overhead. And obviously, the more resistance, the harder it's going to be. The more you kind of pull it through, the harder it's going to be. It's going to create a little bit more resistance. You can also use a kettlebell as well if that's what you have. So the modification is just different weights. So lower the weight or use a band, And that will be that. Okay, the next movement is going to be our kettlebell swing. Important things with the kettlebell swing, we want to be a little slightly wider than hip width apart. We want to come back as far as our outside of our wrist to the inside of our thigh. If we're touching our leg anywhere but the outside of our wrist, this is our wrist right here, people, not here. So if we're starting to feel that we're hitting somewhere above our wrist, that means we're coming back down too far. We're leaning back too far. That's where we can see some more back injury with this. So if you have, if you're prone to back injury, this is something you really need to be aware of. You really want to have good form during your kettlebell swing to prevent that injury. If you start feeling a pull in that lower back, reassess your form. It's always going to come back to form, right? So you're going to come back, reach back with your outside of your wrist to the inside of your thigh. Your chest is always going to be pointed up, and you're going to be looking forward, and you're going to use your hip drive. So you're going to really, the more you, I hate saying it this way because it sounds weird, the more you thrust forward, that thrust is going to bring that kettlebell up. We want straight arms, no T-Rex arms where you're coming up like this. That's cheating, people. We want to be straight arms. We want to come to about eye height here. So if you find yourself trying to pull that kettlebell up, that means you're not getting enough drive. So a good thing to do is to videotape yourself doing a kettlebell swing so you can check your form, because sometimes you're not really noticing how far your kettlebell actually is coming up. You think it's eye height, but it ends up being down here somewhere. So videotape yourself doing a few swings, see how your form is, how your back is straight or if it's bent forward. See where you're hitting your legs here, if you're coming down too far. And again, another big mistake I see with kettlebell swings is a squat. There's no squat in a kettlebell swing. I can't tell you that enough. There's no squat. So if you're coming down into a squat, again, that's when you're going to feel your leg touch somewhere else. That means you're coming down into this squat. You want only your legs when you come back. You're bringing your hips back. You're slightly bent at the knee. You're not squatting down, just a slight bend, and then bringing it forward. So, demo here. Now, when I do this, I don't feel any pull in my back because I'm using good form. It's straight. I'm using my momentum with my hip drive forward, and I'm not pulling with my arms. I'm not bending too forward. So if you don't have a kettlebell, you can use a dumbbell as well. And it's the same movement, just with a different piece of equipment. So those are our swings. And last but not least, our sit-up is going to be come up, touch those toes. Modifications, touching your knees. So this is, by the way, when I say modification, touching your knees, that is a replacement of a crunch. So instead of doing this or whatever, you can do this and touch your shins, but same movement, touching your knees here if you can't get all the way up. I do that because, again, it just teaches you not to stick your hands behind your head. I think most people grow up telling you the right way to do a sit-up is with your hands behind your head. And what we find when we do that is that you're going to be straining your neck forward, and then you're going to start feeling pull in those muscles, in that neck, and you're going to be sore and all sorts of not fun things. So that is the workout of the day. Remember, it is 5 rounds of that. So you're going to go through all that one time, and then all that through another time, and so on and so on. So good luck. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy that dinner. Make good choices.